The film begins with a montage of newsreels describing an alien invasion of Earth. Europe is rapidly destroyed by an asteroid that landed into the continent carrying the Mimics, an extraterrestrial race. When everything seems lost, a human force using new mechanized suits wins a significant battle at Verdun, and Sergeant Rita Vertowski, a Special Forces soldier, is praised as a hero after being credited with hundreds of Mimic kills. She becomes an immediate icon and a recruiting bonanza for the human military, as the United Human Armies attempt to capitalize on the momentum from Verdun to launch a multi-pronged final attack on Europe. Major William Cage of the U.S. Army is one of the talking heads on the newsreels pushing Vertowski and the war effort. The morning of the day before the operation to retake Europe, Cage wakes up from a sleep while traveling by helicopter to London, UK. Meeting with General Brigham, the commander of the Western Allies, Cage assumes the general wishes him to assist in improving his public image or getting ready for a post-war political career. Rather, the general gives Cage orders to go with the initial Allied troop landing wave into France and cover the action on the ground for the media. Cage, who has no prior experience in the field and was an ROTC cadet in college, attempts a number of strategies to evade the deployment before attempting to blackmail the general through the media. When his plans to win the general over failed, he then tries to run away but the guards dazed him. Cage wakes up in the afternoon on a pile of duffel bags at Heathrow Airport, which has been converted into a military outpost, before Farrell, another sergeant, takes over. A sergeant shoves his boots into his hands and calls him a maggot. It turns out that General Brigham informed Farrell that Cage had been degraded from officer to private after attempting to desert. When Cage first meets J Squad, a group of strange troops, Farrell catches them gambling. Cage is then assigned to J Squad. After making J Squad eat the cards they were playing with, Farrell gives them the order to prepare Cage for their deployment the following day. At dawn, Cage is a nervous wreck on Invasion Day, which is the next day. He gets dressed in a suit, and as the J Squad members think he will die very soon, they don't even bother to teach him how to turn off the safe mode on his weapon. They march to board their airship and take off. Getting close to the mission, the squad's airship got hit and explodes at the last second, causing them to descend into the French coast before they are ready. Despite the fact that the invasion to recapture Europe was supposed to be unanticipated, the Mimics are fully equipped and ambush and kill the humans. Sergeant Vertowski also ends up on the shore, but she dies quite quickly. J Squad's remaining members are all quickly eliminated. A massive blue Mimic leaps on Cage, who is still shell-shocked and on the verge of death, and he snatches a Claymore mine. Cage and the Mimic are killed by the subsequent blast, but not before Cage gets soaked with the blue Mimic's blood. Panicking, Cage wakes up on top of the duffel bags, only to have Farrell take him back to J Squad and the same sergeant label him a maggot. He tries desperately to explain what's going on and that everyone will be ambushed by the Mimics, but no one is buying it. He dies and is deployed each time, only to resurrect on the duffel bags. He gets a little better at saving J Squad members and Vertowski with every loop, but the Mimics are too many and always end up killing everyone. He lives long enough to inform Vertowski that he is trapped in a time loop during one cycle. After realizing what had transpired, Vertowski asks Cage to find her when he wakes up and they got killed again. When Cage awakens on the duffel bags once more, he decides to buy himself some time to locate Vertowski by cooperating with Sergeant Farrell and J Squad. Cage eventually escapes from physical training after making multiple deadly efforts to sneak out of the base, and he spots Vertowski in a training bay encircled by training drones. He is greeted coldly by the Special Forces men, who are all resentful towards him. However, after explaining that Vertowski had called for him, she whisks him off to a weapons construction bay where her friend Carter works. After they arrive, they head to a back room where Vertowski and Carter give Cage an explanation. Vertowski explains that she was also caught in a time loop in Verdun, which is how she was able to kill hundreds of Mimics by herself by the end of the loop. Regular Mimics are orange and human-sized. The blood of the giant blue alpha Mimic was what established the loop, but if the looper gets a transfusion of human blood, the loop is broken and they would pass away permanently. As a result, Vertowski gives Cage the directive to always ensure that he dies out completely rather than mistakenly being revived, as she did after Verdun, an action that freed her from the circle. Carter worked as a researcher at General Brigham headquarters before he was fired for developing a technology that could identify the Omega, an alien entity with an overmind, and assuming that all Mimics are just brain manifestations of this creature. While Cage struggles to make sense of it all, Vertovsky informs him that they have to make it through tomorrow's invasion in order to find the Omega. After that, she starts training Cage, murdering him a couple of times when he gets hurt, so he wakes up on the duffels and starts over. In battle on the beach, Cage and Vertovsky significantly progress, but in spite of everything, they both continue to die, and Cage repeatedly loops. As Cage becomes attracted to Vertovsky, witnessing her repeated deaths begins to wear on him emotionally. His next loop, he tries to dodge the fight and went to a bar instead. But in the end, the mimics destroy everyone in London during their onslaught, which sends Cage back for more loop. In a single mental loop, Cage is shown that the Omega is located in a German dam. Vertovsky and Carter surmise that the visions stem from Cage's transformation into an Alpha following his infection with the blue blood, and that the Alphas and Omega possess the ability to control perception and time. Therefore, the main goals of Cage and Vertovsky's efforts are to survive on the invasion beach and travel inland to Germany. Eventually, Cage and Vertovsky arrive inland following a series of setbacks and fatalities. They become close on the trips, and Cage records every detail Vertovsky says on each loop. Fighting their way to Germany, Vertovsky talks about having a lover in Verdun that she had to see die hundreds of times before she lost track of him and he passed away permanently. Upon discovering a helicopter within a farmhouse, Vertovsky discerns that Cage is attempting to convince her to remain there. While he proceeds by himself and she confronts Cage, Cage acknowledges that they have already made several loops about the farmhouse, but each time Vertovsky passes away. Therefore he is attempting to prevent her from passing away by traveling by himself. Outraged and shocked, she starts the helicopter and a mimic came out immediately and crashed it, injuring her. Cage kills the mimic and kills himself to reset the loop. In the loop that follows, Cage chooses to go to Germany alone rather than with Vertovsky. When Cage finally makes it to the German dam by himself, he finds nothing and nearly gets trapped by the mimics before drowning. In the subsequent loop, Cage, Vertovsky, and Carter piece the puzzle together and deciphered the visions. The Omega mimic Overmind staged Vertovsky's victory at Verdun in order to trick the humans into attacking Europe, where all of the human armies would be ambushed and destroyed. Their final hope is the gadget Carter created that led to his termination. Vertovsky and Cage shift their attention to obtaining the gadget, which is under General Brigham's control. They finally succeed in getting the device and stabbing Cage in the leg after multiple deadly mistakes. Then, Cage discovers the Omega's actual location, which is the Paris Louvre Museum. As soon as Vertovsky realizes this, their escape car crashes, and the airbag renders her unconscious before she can murder Cage. Waking up under arrest, Cage is shackled on a hospital gurney. Given that he received a blood transfusion after the vehicle accident, he understands that he is no longer in the loop. After Vertovsky gets them both free, Cage decides to return to the base to locate the Misfit J Squad in order to get them to Paris because there are no more loops and a few hours remain before the disastrous invasion. After learning about Cage's deep knowledge of J Squad and Vertovsky's reputation, J Squad is persuaded, and they all board a plane and travel to Paris. Half of J Squad perish in the subsequent shootout as the mimics crash their airship at the Louvre. In order to eliminate the Omega, Cage, Vertovsky, and the three surviving members of J Squad make the decision to use the airship's remaining engine power to slide it into the Louvre and set off grenades. Cage and Vertovsky enter the museum while the rest of J Squad sacrifices themselves on the slide. When they arrive, Vertovsky informs Cage that he will go ahead and set off a grenade belt on the Omega, which is submerged beneath the surface of the Louvre, while she goes to distract an alpha mimic that is patrolling the area. They kiss as Vertovsky declares that neither of them will make it through the experience. Vertovsky wishes she had more time to spend getting to know Cage before leaving. Cage submerges himself to reach the Omega. Following a short pursuit, Vertovsky is captured and killed by the Alpha. After detecting Cage, the Alpha sends the Omega back to get Cage. Cage yanks out all the grenade pins and drops the belt into the Omega as the Alpha dives after him to attack him. Along with the Omega's explosion and demise, all of the mimics perish. Like the Alpha's blood did at the beginning, Cage's dying process causes the Omega's blood to flow into him. After waking up in shock, Cage discovers that he is in a chopper heading to London the morning before the invasion. After landing, he watches the television to learn that the humans will start taking over Europe the following day and that the mimics had all perished following unexplained explosions in Paris. As Cage enters the base, every member of J Squad is present and in good health. When Cage finds Vertovsky, She greets him with the same impoliteness that she did when they first met in every loop, but now that he is a major again, everyone treats him with respect. Cage smiles broadly upon realizing this. The end.